It's Jed Brewer with Study Groups and SG Voices. It's really nice to have you on our webinar today. AI. We're going to be talking about AI. It's a big buzzword that's thrown around. We've been kind of going through a webinar series trying to go more in depth on AI, but in particular, what are applications that we can use today that can help our businesses? I was just at a study group meeting. The best idea competition that we had, the winner of it was related to AI, but it was Leo, a AI robot that can stock shelves. And so they're experimenting with that in their stores right now. And we'll see how that progresses. But AI has many uses. Some are still in the future, and we're still figuring them out, but other ones are here and able to be used today. So really excited for our presenters who are going to be here. First, we'll have a Pythia Scorecard. So Nick Lynch, who's the owner of Pythia. Nick is a study group member, but used to own a convenience store chain and some travel plazas. Sold that off and started Pythia. So he'll dive more into some of the uses that Pythia is using. And then we have a study group member, Alex Cougar of Gas and Wash, which is a chain of convenience stores in Chicagoland area. So they'll be talking about how they're using voice and AI applications in order to capture the voice of the consumer and make business decisions off of it. So we'll be describing that a little bit. Following, we'll have Rock Associates. So Josh Carr, who's the CEO at Rock, Joel Miller, and Tommy Oberkfell are going to talk more about other applications that we can use with AI. So we'll pick up some of that in just a little bit. But we want this to be educational in nature. If you have questions, you're on mute, but please type those questions into the dialog box. I can read those questions and I will pass those on to our presenters at the appropriate time because we want your questions to be answered. Those are important and that's why we're here. So this will also be recorded and will be sent out to you afterwards. So with that introduction, I'm going to just share briefly more about Pythia AI. And I know Nick will do that at the same as he gets going in, but their scorecard, they help retail chains track dollars to the penny and what actually happens at the counter, such as the tone of voice that a CSR or a customer interaction has, any customer frustration that may be voiced while that customer is at the counter, staff stress, all these things they can get numbers around, and Nick will talk about it much more eloquently than me, but just capturing those everyday checkout conversations and then being able to drive operational improvements, solve problems based off of it. So with that in mind, Nick, let me turn the controls and the voice over to you to share more.
Yeah, thanks, Jed. Super excited to be here today with Pythia Scorecard. And we're going to talk about AI and how that can bring a human element into the operational metrics, right? Like you were just talking about. And so we'll talk about leveraging this new technology to make your team, more efficient and focus to drive results to the bottom line. But first, I want to welcome Alex, and he's from Gas and Wash, one of the 40 under 40 in our industry. Special guest today using, Pythia Scorecard at his stores. But, Alex, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and what Gas and Wash is doing today.
Yeah, Nick, thanks so much for inviting me on today. And Jed, thanks for hosting as always. Really excited to be on it and talk about some of the AI we're using. Before we get into that, I'll just give a brief overview of Gas and Wash. We've been rapidly expanding all in the Chicago area. We're about to open next Friday our 37th location. We've been on a pretty steady clip of 5 stores a year over the last 5 years. And with part of that scaling, it comes a lot of change in infrastructure, not just the new sites, but the personnel to help, fuel those sites to continue to grow. And we're really focused on how we can do that scaling without adding a ton of headcount, and AI is kind of central to that strategy.
Yeah, and thanks, Alex. So I think I'm going to explain a little bit about Pythia Scorecard just so people understand what it is, and then I'll bring you back and you can give us some direct insights on what you're seeing at the operational level and and maybe some lessons learned with AI bringing it into your operations. But a little bit about my background, as it just said, been a family-run business. We exited in 2021, but we've been in business over 100 years. I'm a fourth generation, owner in this industry, and we started in 1923 with home heating oil, and then we went into convenience stores and travel centers and car washes, and also had the wholesale side as well with the fleet of trucks, and we built our own fuel terminal to rail fuel into our area. But grew up hands-on the business. I've ran cash registers, I've opened stores, closed stores, and learned a lot, and moved my way up through the company to be president of it, and ran retail. And as Jed said, been part of a study group for over 10 years, and it's been a lot of fun, learning from other operators for best business practice, and to grow and have that growth mindset. And today, just we're going to cover basically three pillars that Pythia Scorecard stands for, and how each one connects directly to your bottom line. So the first one is the employee experience. What's the culture like? And the saying goes, culture eats strategy for lunch, and it's absolutely true. And how do we reduce that turnover, and ultimately find A players to deepen that bench on your team? And then the second pillar is the customer experience, and how do we identify those friction points, and keep those customers, and increase those basket sizes to drive profits. And then thirdly, how do you operationalize this, right? How can we bring awareness and speed of information to enhance and focus the energy, and be really attentional with your leaders on how they're spending their time and energy at the store level. So having said that, what is audio intelligence? And what we do is, at the sales counter, we do audio analysis, and we find actionable insights. Think of it as a source of truth that can carry through the levels of management. And the AI brings awareness to the leadership team, whether it's a manager or a district manager, all the way up to the owner. It doesn't matter how many layers of management you have. But the goal is to have a balanced scorecard. I'm getting my executive MBA right now, and we had a session on this, and it really hit home with me. But the concept is, most owners and leaders are really good at numbers like financial data and transactional data, right? But we're not necessarily good at the human side, such as what's the employee experience like, and what's the customer experience like. Looking back, I never really spent a lot of time doing those surveys and getting those inputs, and I wish I would have, but now there's a way to do it through audio intelligence in a meaningful way. And so, to ground ourselves, this is an example of a store layout. It sits at the cash register. It's about 8 foot in diameter, and this zone is what I used to call in my stores the connection zone. This is kind of sacred ground. This is where the company and your brand meet the customer face to face, and it's really important to know what's going on here. And over time, as an owner, Alex, you kind of touched on this, is you just naturally get further away from the work that directly feeds the business, and this helps bridge that gap of information. And so the goal isn't surveillance, it's awareness, and when employees know their work is noticed and appreciated, they rise to the occasion. And there's a psychological aspect to this, where the observer effect. If you remember back in elementary school, the principal came in, the students, were on their best behavior. I even see it in my MBA class, where when the director of the MBA sits in our class, everyone sits up a little bit better, takes more notes, raises their hand more often. So we're also seeing with our clients the observer effect, where it's actually, changing human behavior for the better at the store level. And so that's the concept of audio intelligence. It's that zone is focused strictly at the sales counter. And you might want to you might think look at this into the field. I used to do this. It's called the casino method, but we wanted to address the employee turnover and how do we find A players to deepen our bench? And so our hypothesis was, if we found enough A players to build, a better team, this would ultimately reduce turnover and increase sales and increase the basket size. And how do we do that? We identify and reward and promote quickly. But we were worried about the managers having, maybe a bias towards certain employees versus others, or simply making a decision based on, word of mouth, because they worked opposite shifts and, they rarely saw each other. And we thought we weren't getting very good data, and we wanted to add a level of confidence. And so we used the casino method. And my GM at the time brought this over. He worked at a casino, and so what we did, it was very labor intensive, but we audited every employee every month for about 15 minutes. And again, our intention was, how do we observe, good behavior and identify A players and move them through their career and journey. But it took a lot of time. I spent several hours a week. My GM, price book manager, auditors, like I was pulling all my corporate team in to do this analysis. And quite frankly, it was too labor intensive and didn't scale, right? So it didn't last very long, but the intent was there is let's reduce employee turnover and find those A players. But if, for example, if we had, Pythia Scorecard, we can audit 100% of the time instead of a few random snapshots. And that might look like, automatically surfacing great interactions so managers can recognize those employees immediately and not months or later when it's time to do one-on-one reviews. And then from the employees perspective, that's huge, right? Because imagine being able to stand out and be identified as an A player based on your daily consistency, and not just who happens to see you do good work. And for the company, it's a faster and more scalable way to build high performing teams. And we all know employee turnover is very costly. I think it's around $2,500 nowadays to recruit and onboard and train employees. But so the first step in reducing turnover is simple. It's, let's create constant constructive feedback loop with your team. People want to know how they're doing, and they just need to hear it in a faster way. And for the first time, we can also measure the ripple effects of high turnover. And I have some examples coming up but with high turnover, I think you see some inconsistencies with training, and that bleeds over to the sales impact. And like I said, I'll show some examples here in just a second. But let's switch over to the customer side of things. And losing a customer is very costly. Our assumption was that, if we could hear those moments of friction in real time, we could resolve them before the customer ever, takes their business elsewhere. And originally, when I started Pythia Scorecard, it was going to be 100% focused on employees. But when we put this out into the field, we quickly found that we're getting just as much rich data from the customers as we were from the employees. And that's what drove us to focus using AI for the customer experience and not just the employee behavior. And so a couple of common, friction points we see at our clients is, as you can imagine, restrooms, toilet paper out, or some smells or plumbing issues, and which, is really memorable and could impact the frequency of the customer shopping at your store. And then we also, at the point of sale, the credit card reader, there's friction there where they have to reset the credit card machine multiple times a day, or right in the middle of a transaction, Pythia flags it, and the employee has to tell the customer move to the next till because they can't complete the transaction. And the fuel pumps as well, cards not working out at the pump. Last week we had Pythia flagged an employee that was telling customers, to activate the pump and then set the nozzle down on the ground for 30 seconds to let the pump prime, and then put it in your car and pump. And so, this isn't a great experience for the customer aspect. So those are the things we're catching. at a high level using Pythia Scorecard. But at the same time, we're seeing how the employee turnover is bleeding into the sales process. And here's some real examples. During the bottom left-hand corner is a picture of a till exchange and a representation. And during the till exchange, literally the employee said to the customers, there was a line, come back in 10 minutes. We can't check you out right now. And that's a great way for the manager to hear that and see that and fix that process so that doesn't happen in the future. The bottom right-hand corner is another example where a brand new employee was doing the grocery order and missed the cigarettes, and this was like on a Thursday night, and they were telling all the customers, hey, come back, you'll have to come back next week, we're out of cigarettes. Again, it got flagged, and the manager had the opportunity to go transfer cigarettes from a sister store called the Grocery Wholesaler for delivery. The top right hand corner is internet went out and the LTE backup failed, and the employees were telling all the customers, we can't sell fuel because we can't take credit cards right now, and so Pythia picked it up, and that can start a conversation of why did the LTE not kick on, because we're paying for it, and it should have flipped over automatically. And the last one is a real case as well, as the employee made it to work but fell asleep in their car and didn't open the store. And so the next day, the customers, were coming in and giving an earful to the cashier that they had to go down the street to a competitor. And so this raises the question is, how often is this happening without us knowing about it? And therefore, if we can hear these friction points early, can we fix them fast before they cascade into customer loss? And this brings me to the third pillar, which is, how do you execute AI? Because AI will bring awareness, but it's not going to fix your problems. So to be successful with AI, you have to be intentional. AI or the software you're using are not going to solve your problems for you, and it boils down to, time is our most limited resource, and therefore use the AI tools to focus your leader's energy, right? And this looks like, cutting straight to the source of truth. And instead of relying on hearsay or delayed reports or Google reviews, you can hear what's happening and act quickly. And ultimately, we all have the same 24-hours in a day, right? But the leaders who can focus their energy and they can truly, where it truly matters, they can outperform their competitors.
Nick, this raises a lot of questions for me as you're getting into it. Where do you hear the conversations at? The store counter, I heard. Can you hear conversations at the pump? What areas?
No, it's only at the sales counters, that 8-foot diameter radius. And if you imagine throughout hundreds of conversations a day, there are customers that come to the counter and let the employees know what's going on. I'm having a pain point, something's not working right. And that's where we flag it. So a lot of, misconception where all the way throughout the store process, we're just at the sales counter area to capture that.
And then I'm ignorant. Are there legal potential repercussions of recording conversations? I'm sure you've worked through that.
Yeah, generally speaking, there's 35 states that are single party states, and you might already be doing this already, you just might not realize it, but through your security cameras, we had recording of audio and video at our stores. And so 35 states are single party states. The employees need to know you need to have it in the employee handbook and be trained on it. It's best business practice. But 15 states are all party states, and we're in all party states as well. And you can add a sign, at your front entrance that says, we reserve the right to record audio and video for training and security purposes, right? So you need to cover all your bases, and every state's a little bit different, so you need to check with your local state laws, but generally speaking, that's best business practice.
Got it. And are the employees, are they comfortable with that, or how do you message that they're being recorded to them in a positive way? I mean, clearly this is helping them, do their job better.
Yeah, it's important to be transparent and let them know what this is and how it's going to be used. It's not intended for surveillance. We have, security systems to do that. It's intended to bring awareness and, make sure your employees also have air their thoughts and feelings that they can, ask you questions about it as well and ask how does it work. But we find once you realize, we're operators are already doing this through their security cameras, it brings the tension down if there is any. And then also it's really good for the employees because, think about it, if they feel like there's a glass ceiling there for whatever reason or friction, we analyze it in an unbiased way, and it's easy for the employees to stand out and be recognized and promoted within the company. Good question.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'll let you continue on about how you're actually using this here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the last piece is, we turn all the data into, something actionable, right? So in the top right graph is we trend the data out over time to make sure, for continuous improvement. It's really important to know where you stand among your peers. The bottom graph is like a benchmarking to where your store, you can compare very easily where the industry average is and where the top quartile is. And so we do benchmarking among the Pythia cohort of clients. And when you do that, you can focus your team's time where it makes the biggest impact quickly, right? And the top left is the leaderboard. We wanted to add some fun to it for the employees to get buy-in, and we rank the stores so you can have some friendly competition of, I got ranked up a level today, and they can earn badges. So we added an element of fun to it as well to have that friendly competition. But what it looks like from a day perspective, essentially we take 24 hours of audio and we're showing 3 minutes, right? It's a very narrow, we just surface the top nuggets of information for the day. And so a manager can quickly, just a few minutes, go through their insights and, pick one or two that's really important to them for the day and, focus their energy and be intentional about areas that will make the biggest impact for the day. And so out of 24 hours, you get 3 to 5 minutes of information, and we keep that human in the loop element to where with one click of a button, you can actually hear the insight. And so you can confirm that the AI did find something that was worthwhile, and I'm going to take action and look into it. But that's, overall, that's Pythia Scorecard in a nutshell. And I know I went really quickly, but I wanted to bring Alex back in, and you're using Pythia Scorecard, you're using other AI platforms. And so I wanted to get your insight on what this looks like from, down at the store level, the operational level. And, the first thing at a high level, Alex, how are you using the audio intelligence to help grow your company? And do you see it scaling across more of your stores as you grow so fast?
Yeah, what you said earlier, Nick, is so true. The importance of culture, and I think if you're using these tools as a big brother, like, hey, I heard on the audio this cashier said X, it does feel a lot like Big Brother coming in and micromanaging everything. For us, it's more of a guiding point of what is the culture like at the store? How are we interacting with the customers? Is someone coming? Are we greeting anyone? Or are they just coming up and saying, "What do you want?" At a store, especially as we're open 24 hours a day at Gas and Wash at all of our sites. So maybe we have that cultural integrity, if you will, during our morning shift, and then maybe it falls off in the evening. So it helps us be more prescriptive of who maybe needs guidance and coaching, and not pointing to, hey, let me play this audio back for you, where it does feel a lot like Big Brother. So I think it's more like an alignment and a guide than it is should be used just to say, let me listen and play back the audio to the team members. So I think the cultural alignment piece has been the best way we've used Pythia at the sites we've got it rolled out at so far.
Yeah, that's great insight. And can you talk a little bit about, AI and I mean, you guys are growing so fast and the scalability of it, right? You can't be everywhere at once, especially you got so many stores. How has this helped you and your leadership team, stay connected to what's really happening in the stores day to day?
Yeah, so our average regional manager, so we have, two sides of our business. We do have the full express exterior car wash model, and then we have on average our convenience stores around 8,000 square feet. So it's quite a lot for our regionals to oversee. They can't be at 8 sites in a day. I'm definitely not going to 36 sites in a week even. So I think it just helps give that extra point because I think, a lot of times when the team sees the regional manager let our owner go in or anyone from our leadership team, you'd hope that they would be putting their best foot forward. So it helps you kind of, in a way, be ubiquitous and be everywhere as you scale and not have to worry about, hey, what's happening when I'm not here? And you can guess, but this is very prescriptive instead of trying to assume what's happening.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's great insight on that. So on that note, what kinds of changes are you seeing from your frontline employees? Like I talked a little bit about how behavior can change, the human behavior can change. Are you seeing that at your car washes and at the stores with Pythia?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Pythia and then I'll get into the AI we're using on the car wash side. Because we've avoided the Big Brother approach to kind of an extreme, so people aren't I don't feeling like they're micromanaged. There's been there's been some behavior changes, but it's really about giving the manager the feedback to have conversations with his or her team, so that we can make those improvements. And we've in fact at one of the sites we have Pythia, we made a manager change because we felt that culture going so awry that we felt like we needed to make that move. So that's one great way we've used Pythia because we were told that they were working with their team and we could tell that those changes weren't coming about. And we didn't point to Pythia and say we let somebody go because of it, but it was just another reason why we felt that that decision was substantiated. Now, when we think about the car wash side, it's a lot different. We're not, listening to those conversations and condensing them into 3 minutes the same way. We're using it's through Rinsed, a CRM. It's called Sales Path, which is the way we've kind of gamified and counted and been able to listen to every single sales presentation that our CSRs on the car wash side give. And what's really nice is, on a busy day, we'll have 2,500 to 4,000 presentations. You talk about scalability. I'm definitely not listening to 4,000 sales presentations in a day. Not to make an excuse, but that's not where my time is being spent. But the nice thing for Sales Path is it gives an AI grade, F to an A plus. So we know where we need to spend time, whether it's like, hey, this is a really good grade. What are they saying that is resonating so well with the customers? And on the other end of that coin, if we see an F, we need to listen to some of those presentations and say, what are they saying that is resulting in that grade? And it helps you, that AI tool on the sales path side helps us really know where we should be spending our time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's such a good use of your time, right? And using AI, that's a perfect example. And Jed, I know we're out of time, but Alex, thank you so much for your time today. You're doing, such great things and being such an innovative leader and company. And hats off to you and your team. You guys are doing a great job out there.
Nick, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
And Nick, I'd just ask you about Pythia. What do you see on the horizon, or what's next? You're currently capturing those conversations around the store counter, but what's next for you?
Yeah, I think we're releasing a feature here in about a month, and even though we only report on 3 minutes a day, we still have the 24 hours of data, right? So in a ChatGPT way, you can ask a question. If you're big into upsells, you can start asking it question. What store is my best store for upselling at the cash register, which is really impacting my bottom line, and what can we learn from that and transfer it to the other stores? So in a very non-data science way. Anyone can just ask great questions and get this very useful information to make an impact at your store level. So it's pretty exciting stuff. This technology is moving so fast, and I think it's really going to evolve our industry in a great way. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And one last thing, Jed, before I leave, if everyone can pull out their smartphone and scan the QR code, I'd love to keep the conversation going. And I'll send you some examples of legal language you can use in your employee handbooks and at the store entrance signs. But love to connect with everyone on the call today. And thanks, Jed. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick, and all you're doing with Pythia. I love seeing these new applications of technology that we have, and how you're changing things. We're going to change gears, but staying on the same theme, to Rock Associates out of Atlanta, Georgia. Josh Carr is the CEO with Rock, but they've got a really fascinating company. Been involved as an education partner with us for a number of years, and really going to be talking about going beyond metrics that can be siloed. I love this topic that Josh has here, from chaos to clarity. Like, all right, we got all this data that's coming in from now AI and other sources, but like, how do we really create information and inference out of that? So I'm excited for what you're going to be talking about here today, Josh, and how we can leverage AI to our benefit in the here and now. And Rock Associates, just as a brief background, but they help fuel retailers just like you make technology and operational improvements. From your mobile apps that you have to merchandising and everything in between. They've worked with a number of our study group members over time, and they ensure that business processes are optimized and you're able to maximize your profits. And sometimes technology that you have gets outdated and no longer supports the business. So they're also very helpful in helping you identify what those next generation technology solutions are, staying abreast on the changes that are taking place as we're trying to run our businesses. So with that background in mind, Josh, I'll turn it over to you. Talk about chaos and how we can turn it into clarity.
All right, thanks, Jed. I appreciate it. Yes. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction this afternoon, and then I'll turn it over to Tommy and Joel. They're the real experts on this topic. They're a couple of our senior solution architects at Rock Associates and have a deep knowledge on this domain. So just quickly, by way of introduction, we all know in the C-store industry, it's fast-paced. Every second of downtime directly leads to lost sales, lost revenue, upset customers. So it's very important that we know and are aware of these problems. Whether it's a point of sale is down, your pump is running slow, maybe your connection to the credit host or your loyalty host has gone down. It's very important that you know about these things as quickly as possible, so you can take action and get things back up and running as quickly as possible. The complexity of the technology landscape of the C-stores it's really gone exponentially more complex over the years. And so, waiting for a store personnel to let you know, like, oh, I noticed this pump's down or the point of sales isn't working right. Waiting for them to log a help desk ticket to then take action on that, it just doesn't cut it anymore. You need to know about these things ahead of time and be able to react more proactively. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today, is this idea of system observability. Nick talked about audio intelligence. We're really talking about kind of system intelligence. And so rather than listening to people's voices, we're going to be listening to data, basically. So really that's kind of what we're talking about here, is this topic of system observability, and Joel and Tommy will kind of dive into more kind of helping to define that. So don't worry if you don't know what that is at this point, but this is something that is applicable to retailers large and small. There's tools out there that are appropriate for no matter what size you are. And so as you're listening to today's presentation, be thinking about ways that you can really apply this to your business, because I guarantee you're going to see something. Now, just by way of a quick review of the agenda. So first of all, Joel and Tommy are going to go in and walk through kind of an introduction of the concept and some examples of areas where these might be applicable to the C-store industry, as well as diving into the best practices for implementation. Just so you can kind of start thinking about how do you get started? It's not too overwhelming. And then we'll dive really a lot deeper into some specific use cases that we have personally helped retailers achieve and implement these tools. And then, all along the way, we'll kind of be looking at ways that artificial intelligence has really started to be applied to these tools, so that you're really proactively taking action on these things, and it's able to pull in data from multiple sources to look for trends and look for those interrelated use cases. So anyway, that's just, I'll get out of the way at this point. I just wanted to kind of give that quick introduction. So now I'm going to turn it over to Joel, and he'll take us through this. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks, Jed. So to kick things off here, let's talk about what is observability, right? It's a bit of a buzzword. You might have heard it many times, and so we're going to dive in a little bit on what that means. So pretty simple. It's really the ability to understand how a system is performing by analyzing its output, and we're looking for the why, not just the what. When I say analyzing the output, and the output is classified into metrics, events, logs, and traces. We're going to talk about that a little more in a few slides. Many of you already potentially are leveraging a security information and management tool, or SIEM tool for security or network ops observability. Today, we're going to really focus on using similar tools as a means to maximize operation of your stores and uptime. And then in all aspects of system operations, as Josh said, we want to move away from waiting for someone to notice that something is not working, and move towards automatically identifying issues and trends that will increase uptime and system reliability. Okay, next slide. Okay, so observability is a journey. Okay, so don't expect to reap all the benefits overnight. The goal here is to continue to expand the systems that are feeding data into your SIEM. So with more systems comes more event correlations and better insights on how you can improve your systems. However, even with logs from a single application, you can begin generating insights and identifying trends. So again, don't be intimidated by all of this. It is a great time to start. Okay, next slide. Okay, so just as getting more and more systems connected to your SIEM is a journey, so too is how you operationally handle data coming from your stores. Talk about that first phase, more on the immature side. You're waiting for the store to identify issues, log tickets, and investigating things that way. Next phase, a little more advanced, right? Now you're looking at logs, you're automatically creating tickets when you see certain events. Maybe you can see a log that a system is offline, and you create a ticket automatically. Still relatively immature, though, in the observability journey. Phase 3, where you really want to be going, is identifying trends and insights that will enable you to reduce downtime and eliminate the majority of your tickets. So that's where you notice that, could be that, when a certain system utilization is high, an application crashes and you lose credit or something along those lines, right? That correlation and that trend, that's something that can help you realize, oh, you know what, we need more memory on our computers, or we need higher processing speed. So this is one example. Okay, next slide. We'll talk a little bit about as I mentioned, MELTs are metrics, events, logs, and traces. So these are the outputs coming out of your system, and talk a little about how they play into these SIEM tools and how they can be used to generate insights to help you, again, maximize your uptime. So metrics, those are things like speed, utilization, availability, usually things that are constantly being monitored that can provide a lot of context into what's happening in your environment. Logs. So we're going to talk a lot about logs today, especially Tommy, because it's incredible what you can learn about your store from looking at application logs. So many things about your, whether it's system logs or also your POS logs, right? Your transaction logs that tell you everything you might want to know about a transaction, what items were in it. it can really be a power. You can use this not just for uptime, but also and performance, but also to learn about sales and how some of these things play into your sales. Events are specific occurrences like a reboot, a user login, application startup, transaction complete, canceled fuel sale, right? And we can correlate those together with other data to identify trends and insights. And then finally, traces. These are a little more advanced, right? It's pretty complex. It involves tracking an operation across systems. So like maybe for example, a payment transaction, how it goes from the point of sale to the payment system out to the processor and back. If you could trace all that stuff, that'd be pretty powerful in understanding when things are slow or down. So when this is properly implemented, it can be very useful. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here is, there's so many things you can do here, and Tommy's going to dive into some of the real world use cases, but just a smattering of things that observability can help with. And these include simpler use cases like understanding why a system goes offline. I mean, you can see a lot of instances there, essentially, pump offline or, paper out or pause offline, virtual connectivity. Those are all pretty basic things that are easy to identify, a little harder to understand why they're happening. Again, understanding those trends and those insights to prevent it from happening in the future. We can also do more complex scenarios, like maybe you can understand how the items in a transaction impact your speed of service. Maybe there's certain items that they're not able to scan the barcode on, and as a result, they're manually entering it, and that slows down speed of service. Now you have a line. Maybe you're getting excessive canceled sales at the pump because the credit card reader is down, or there's some other issue that you don't recognize. Obviously, flow rate, right? That's a degraded performance, like slow flow or slow credit processing. All these things cost you money. They mean lost sales, unhappy customers, unhappy clerks, which, as Nick touched on, right? That's can be extremely harmful to your business. So that is hopefully tees things up for you as we understand what observability really is and what we can accomplish with it. And so I'm going to hand it over to Tommy now to dive into some really cool use cases that he's personally worked on. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Joel, and thank you, Jed. Thank you, Pythia. Welcome, everyone. My name is Tommy from Rock Associates. So like Joel said, I'm going to look a little bit more at how observability is transforming convenience retail, especially as our environments become more connected and data-driven. In a single store, we've got hundreds of data points, point of sale systems, self-checkouts, fuel controllers, loyalty platforms, and I think Joel might have mentioned even refrigeration sensors type of things. Observability is about connecting all of these dots and seeing every part of the ecosystem, understanding the performance in real time, and using that insight to improve operations and customer experience. So I have some bullet points around getting started and what you need to know. Start with what matters most. So identify the critical customer journeys. If that starts at the forecourt and with fuel, not always, maybe, but does it start in store or is it strictly at the checkout? Select the top revenue impacting systems, payment processing, POS, SCO. You can advance, Josh. Build foundational visibility. So we will say this quite a few times, but tagging is extremely important. So I would say standardize your store and device tagging. And then obviously you have to onboard your logs, your metrics, uptime checks for all of your registers, kiosks, fuel controllers, network equipment. Next bullet point. So you'll really want to select the right platform because understanding the market landscape is essential. There are some key platforms and I just chose a few random ones, not showing preference for any of them, but there's Datadog, Dynatrace, New Relic. All of them offer unique strengths and competitive pricing. Next bullet point. You'll really want to define your success criteria early. Does that mean reduced help desk tickets, faster mean time to repair, or improvement in sales availability? Then you'll want to scale through automation, and this is where it gets a little more complex, using scripts for continuous integration, continuous deployment to deploy agents and monitors chain wide. Also audit compliance continuously around these deployments. And then the final data point is around the data sources that we'll talk about this entire presentation. And that's, what do you have available and what are you willing to spend to keep that available? Because there could be a retention period. You'll lose the logs after a certain period of time, potentially. Is it your goal to work on bringing anything and everything into the solution and trimming the fat later? Or are you going to start with a leaner approach and then ramp it up? These are all things we need to think about.
Tommy, you talk about defining that success criteria and doing that early in the process.
Yes.
What are examples of some success criteria that leading people have emphasized?
So I'm actually going to talk about aligning observability with business outcomes next, which talks about KPIs. So some of that success criteria could be like register uptime, or loyalty enrollments in the payment program. I'm sorry, in the loyalty program. Payment success rate. Does that mean that your line lengths get shorter? People use your SCOs more often. Your transactions get faster. We have a lot of ways to gauge that things are improving or they are not improving. I think I answered that, Jed.
Yeah.
Did
yeah,
I?
Kind of. Yeah, speed of service would be one area that you see that a lot of folks putting emphasis on, and being
Totally.
able to use this process to monitor and then manage it. What you measure, you can ultimately monitor, and what you monitor, you can manage.
Yeah, and a
Yes.
lot of these observability tools, they have like full stack observability, and a lot of it is about the customer experience with the website or something like that, right? And it shows when are they exiting, how long are they spending on a page, right? There's tons of data there, but in the store you don't have that kind of they don't have that out of the box capability. So that's why you kind of have to build your own by parsing through logs and finding relevant data. But it's the same kind of things that people are interested in on their websites, right? Which is, how do I convert people to, especially on the kiosk, to upsell, prevent people from walking away from my self checkouts, and speed of service for sure at the register. A lot.
Yeah, the loyalty program example I think you gave, Tommy, was a great one.
Yeah.
Build
Definitely.
engagement with our loyalty. We've invested in these apps, right? We got all this stuff, but how do we get people using it and then make that easy for them?
Exactly.
Yep.
I think the biggest mistake organizations can make is treating observability like a technical exercise. It's not about collecting every log or metric that you possibly can, but more about linking the system health to the business results, like you just mentioned, Jed. For us, that means connecting metrics like pause uptime or loyalty API latency directly to customer satisfaction, sales throughput, and then ultimately brand trust. When leadership can see that a 1 minute outage equals thousands in lost revenue, which I'll mention later, it actually can, observability suddenly becomes everyone's priority. So we'll want to prioritize alerts for customer facing failures, create monitors that correlate directly to lost transactions or slowed throughput, and then measure these KPIs tied to revenue and customer experience, like I mentioned before, register uptime, payment success rate, and then at loyalty enrollments. Connect the system performance to store KPIs, and then ultimately visualize sales impact from downtime. Highlight revenue at risk per incident using potentially historical transaction volume and average basket size. Next slide, please. I just want to be conscious of time too. So standardize and automate everywhere. Scalability starts with consistency. So we really need to decide what we're going to do and stick with it. When you're managing thousands of devices across hundreds of stores, and that's not everyone here, but you can't rely on manual setup or one-off configurations. But by standardizing dashboards, alerting templates, tagging structures, we make sure the data looks the same, whether it's from a register in Florida or a kiosk in Pennsylvania. By automating the deployment of agents and configurations through PowerShell scripts or continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines, we make sure that this observability grows without adding operational burden. For automation, we have things like agent deployment, monitor configuration, and then compliance validation. The consistent tagging structure, like I mentioned before, we've got the store number, the device type, the environment. Those are just a few of the many tags that you would want to use. And then finally, the CI/CD standard updates ensure uniform performance and monitoring across all devices. Thank you for advancing, Josh. Implementation isn't a single project, it's an evolution. We typically start where impact is highest with POS and SCO devices and expand into fuel systems, loyalty platforms, backend infrastructure. Each phase delivers new visibility, tighter feedback loops, and measurable results. The key is collaboration. When store technology, operations, and data teams share one observability language, everyone becomes more proactive instead of reactive, which is what Joel mentioned earlier in our evolution towards observability. So best practices for implementation. I'm just going to say the bullet points here for identifying the stakeholders and critical areas that need observability. We definitely want to create those alerts that are usable and don't just make noise. We also want the dashboards to be effective. Maybe we're giving them to C-suite and they need to know the quick and dirty. They don't need to know the overly technical. People and process, measure the impact, and then continuous improvement. I kind of spoke about all those before we got the bullets up, but that's okay. POS and SCO health monitoring. Okay, so I will try to go through these quickly. So let's say our problem is that the registers and self-checkout lanes intermittently go offline. It causes lost transactions and longer lines. So the root cause analysis is slow due to limited visibility into local device and service performance. We've got a solution. We're going to implement host and log monitoring for registers, kiosk, and SCO terminals. We're going to track that service uptime, transaction latency, and device error logs in a unified dashboard. Set alerts on payment failures, pin pad disconnects, and POS freezes. Except there are challenges. So our high store count means scaling agent deployment and tagging consistency across environments. Also, it could be that we have varying hardware and network configurations at the store edge. Lastly, the results of faster incident resolution through centralized alerting and a reduced downtime, more completed sales, and higher customer throughput. You can advance the slide. So here's just a visual representation of the ability in one SaaS observability tool to navigate from a log snippet through to the event attributes of that log snippet, through to the trace. And the trace that Joel mentioned before is just a record of the journey of a single request, like an API call or a transaction takes through multiple services, databases, components, and then follow that all the way through the metrics that tell data about the host device, such as CPU utilization, disk latency, or network traffic. These are all data points that serve to tell a story about that transaction we saw at the very beginning about the payment rejection error. I thought this was a really cool visual representation of moving through that whole melt thing that Joel mentioned. If you could advance, Josh. Thank you. So for the real-time fuel metrics dashboard, our problem is that store managers lack visibility into that fuel volume flow, pump throughput, and tank inventory. We've got slow or failed pumps that are impacting sales and customer satisfaction. So our solution is to use these metrics pipelines to capture dispenser throughput, wet stock trends, and delivery performance, create real-time dashboards for fuel volume by grade and pump health. And then you might notice a trend. We're going to get some challenges. Integrating legacy forecourt controllers with modern telemetry and ensuring reliable data buffering and upload during network drops. So our results when we've implemented observability can mean early detection of low volume pumps, reducing that fuel downtime, and optimize replenishment scheduling via visibility into tank performance. Being proactive rather than reactive. And we are getting closer on time. I will try to speed up. Loyalty signups and redemptions intermittently fail due to API latency or service timeouts. Failures go unnoticed until customers complain or revenue declines. The solution is to instrument loyalty APIs and POS integration points using those application performance monitoring traces and custom metrics, track response times, error rates, and customer engagement patterns, and then ultimately visualize that loyalty activity per store and promotion in real time. But we have to correlate all these POS logs, cloud, API telemetry, and mobile app activity, and also maintain data privacy and secure observability across systems. But the result can mean that we have reduced the loyalty API errors through this proactive monitoring and enhanced promotion performance tracking and customer retention even. Next slide. This slide is a drag and drop dashboard that serves to show potential loyalty status. It's just a mock dashboard, but the system handled here, for example, 9,000 requests with 0 errors and 10.8% cache use. Throughput is strong, 15 million prompt tokens, 3 million generated tokens. Overall, high load, low error, consistent performance. Next slide, please. Okay, so lastly, the measured ROI, fewer outages, avoided fuel losses, and higher loyalty engagement deliver a measurable improvement in store level profitability and uptime KPIs. Reduced downtime equals higher sales throughput. A 1-minute pause outage, this is what I mentioned before, can cause approximately $4,700. Urgent alerts via observability tools reduce that risk. Next bullet, operational efficiency gains. Preventing a single fuel runout saves approximately $1,200 in combined fuel and in-store profit. Remote monitoring reduces these incidents. Improve customer experience. Loyalty members spend approximately 38% more per visit. Consistent uptime across POS SCO ensures seamless redemption and customer satisfaction. And then lastly, our data-driven solutions. Retailers in the top 25% of loyalty programs see 30 to 37% of transactions tied to loyalty. Real-time observability helps achieve and sustain those levels. And I'm going to pass it back to Joel.
Tommy, I'm just kind of curious here, you know, on this road to observability, let's say, like, where would you recommend I start? You know, I want these outcomes that we're talking about here. For the novice, how do I jump in?
Josh, do you want to take? Should I take?
I mean, well, I think that it kind of ties back to what we talked about at the beginning. It's a matter of working with folks like us that can help you identify what are your current pain points. What are these KPIs that we really need to tackle? I mean, you know, most retailers have a good idea of like where they're currently having problems, and those are going to be the low-hanging fruit. So that's where we can jump in and start looking at what are the systems that you have in place that kind of surround those problem areas, and then we start looking at what type of data elements do we have access to? What are the metrics that we can grab, logs? What are the logs we can grab? And we just kind of start from there. and kind of start building on that. It's really very much an iterative process.
And what expectations should I have going in? I mean, is this a year kind of program to go through it? Is it a 10-year? Does it never end? Give me a sense there.
Yeah, Tommy, like how long was it from start to finish from when you guys were kind of first implementing
It could
with your
be
current customer?
it could be a year. It could be a year and a half. It's certainly not 10 years. I know you're being facetious. But it could be a year. Yeah. It also depends on the size of your operation.
Makes sense. Well, do you guys have your contact information there at the end of the slide deck? And we'll go ahead and wrap up here.
We do, yeah. We didn't get a chance to cover the AI kind of looking forward, but everyone will have this on the slide deck when we hand it out later, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and these slides will go out to everybody at the end, but just really appreciate both Rock Associates as well as Pythia. I know there's some questions we didn't fully get to, but we'll make sure to pass those on to the respective presenters for you. And just want to say thank you to both our presenters and for you for being on this call here today. We appreciate the time and the knowledge. We're always looking to share ideas and get better. And just before you go, I'd like to remind you to check out our SG Voices website for more valuable information. We've got articles on there, past webinars, and other industry-specific resources. And also, mark on your calendar December 11th. So December 11th, there'll be our next webinar. We'll have J&J Gaming on there, and would love to see you. And lastly, we just want to hear from you. So take a moment to complete a short survey that we'll have as you sign off. It's only a couple questions, but we want to deliver content that's valuable to you, so we really appreciate your feedback there. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving that's coming up. We have so much in our lives to be grateful for, and I hope we can use this opportunity just to reflect on the blessings that we have. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Yeah. Thanks, Jed. Bye.